Good morning, everybody. And again, thank you for joining us today. My name is Matt Zarnock, and I'm the CTO at alltasksIT. And obviously, with the initials being MC in my name, I think it's only fitting that I am your master of ceremonies for today's webinar. I didn't get a choice. I was born with that name. And obviously, today's title of our webinar is actually Modernizing Your Data Center and On-Prem Workloads with Azure Stack HCI. Now, as the CTO for All Tasks, please don't ask me any questions about Azure right now, because I am willing to chew your ear off for hours and hours to talk about Azure. But I've got some experts with me in-house today, and we're lucky we've got an hour and a half to actually talk about it, because if I talk, we're going to need a lot longer than an hour and a half. So what I'd like to do is introduce you all to our speakers for today's webinar. And I believe that these guys are the experts of today's topic. So in order of the presenters, I'd first like to introduce you to Kirti Namalapudi from Microsoft. Kirti, I hope I got that right.
You did.
Good morning. Thank you. Thank you. Good morning, Kirti, and thank you again for joining us today. And secondly, I'd like to introduce you to Andre Ahmed from Dell, or Dell Technologies, as they're starting to become well known for. Good morning, Andre, and thank you for joining us today as well.
Good morning, Matt. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Guys, I think I've taken up enough of your time this morning with my very brief intro. Again, CTO from All Tasks IT, and happy to have conversations later on. But I will hand over now to Kirti, our first presenter, to start talking to you about the Azure Stack. Thank you, Kirti.
Wonderful. Am I okay to share my screen?
You absolutely are. Go for it.
Fantastic. All right. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here. Thank you for your time and attention over the next hour and a half. I'm hoping you walk away with a good understanding of what the Microsoft hybrid cloud strategy is, what Azure Stack HCI is, and hopefully find ways to solve a few problems within your infrastructure today. By the way of introduction, my name is Kirti, and I look after the Azure Stack HCI business development across Microsoft, Australia, and New Zealand. I am across all of our partners. So I work with our OEM partners like Dell, HP, and Lenovo. I work with all of our systems integrators, our distributors, basically anyone that's willing to offer you a Stack HCI solution. From within Microsoft, I am your first point of contact. So if you have a question, if you need help, if you basically need a helping hand, anything at all, feel free to come back to me. Add me on LinkedIn if you have to. I'm quite flexible. All right, so let's get started. Let's get started with what hybrid cloud is and what Azure Stack HCI is. Now, this is a very popular thing in Microsoft. There's a lot of talk around hybrid cloud, and there's also this belief that the future of infrastructure is hybrid. I actually disagree with this. I don't think it's the future. I think it's here today. We have customers in the market today that have a bunch of workloads on-prem and a bunch in the cloud, and they find ways to simplify that infrastructure and unify all of these silos. So it is here today, and it is not just the future. We have real-world customers with real-world problems that need solutions for this very diverse infrastructure. Now, our mission with Azure Stack HCI and Azure Arc is to deliver the best of Azure to our customers on your servers that you control with your preferred tools on your premises. What does this mean? It means that when you purchase an Azure Stack HCI solution, you're not actually pushing your workloads or your data into the cloud. This is actually an on-prem solution. You own the capacity, you own the compute, you own everything that comes with it. The hybrid part of it comes up when you turn on Azure features from the platform. So this platform gives you the option to, keep your data on-prem, control everything, but also take advantage of the Azure benefits and Azure features that exist on the platform today. Now, between Hyperconverged, so if I haven't covered this before, but Azure Stack HCI is, a Hyperconverged solution, which is consistent with HCI across, various other vendors. Now, between Hyperconverged and hybrid cloud, there is a huge market out there. Like I've previously touched, there's this huge segment of customers across all kinds of customer segments. So you can, small business, medium business, large customers, enterprise, corporate. And there's many drivers behind why customers are seeking an HCI and a hybrid solution. more than 47% of organizations are actually replacing outdated hardware. So hardware that's between 3 to 7 years old. There comes a point in time for every customer where they have to rethink their infrastructure strategy. And when they do, what are they going to do? Are they going to replace like for like? Will they just go back to a 3-tier solution? Will they go hybrid? Will they go, just a hyperconverged solution, nothing else? How far are they willing to take the infrastructure modernization? So that's one of our top drivers. Others are addressing storage challenges. So storage silos, because Stack HCI is a hyperconverged solution, so all of your compute and storage resides in the same cluster. It's a great way to address a storage silo, so you don't have a separate person managing a box of JBODs or SANs or what have you attached to your switches. Operational challenges are another issue that our customers are trying to solve. How do we simplify your operations? How do we reduce these multiple panels of overview or all of your graphical user interfaces that have you managing your infrastructure? And of course, the traditional, the SQL workloads, predictive analytics, so on. So all of these are workloads that are in the market today that our customers are trying to keep on-prem, and they're trying to find innovative solutions that meet them where their workloads are. Now, the biggest demand driver is the hardware refresh. That compelling event or reason for a customer to consider other solutions, or when they arrive at those crossroads where they have to either replace like for like and get the exact same solution they've had for the longest time, or will they take the next step? Will they innovate? Will they do what the future holds? Will they just go out of their comfort zone a bit and try to find a strategy that will serve them for the many years to come? Right. So that's the total market in ANZ. I work behind the scenes across all of these customers, and we're seeing a huge demand across multiple customer segments. When we started with Stack HCI, we had a few usual suspects. We were thinking IT and telcos, banking and financial, retail customers, healthcare. But we were very pleasantly surprised when organically we saw new entries. We saw mining customers come up. We saw manufacturing, education customers. So this isn't a solution that fits one need. It is very diverse, and it can suit a variety of needs, which is what makes Stack HCI so great as an offering across all of our customers. So that said, where is Microsoft going with this? What is our hybrid cloud story? Now, as you know, we offer Windows Server Standard and Data Center, which is our on-prem version of a solution. Then we also do Microsoft Azure, which is our cloud solution. And over time, we realized that there is this set of customers that sit in the middle that are managing the environment across multiple portals, and we needed to find a way to unify all of those workloads. And the way we do that is through Azure Stack HCI and Azure Arc. Now, if you haven't heard of Azure Arc, it's actually this unification platform. It is a tool that you install across your Stack HCI cluster, across any on-prem solution, actually. But with Stack HCI, it comes fully integrated. So with Azure Stack HCI and Azure Arc, it is a very powerful story in terms of how do we make your workloads accessible from the cloud and vice versa. Now, Stack HCI itself is, like I said, ideal for a number of workloads. So you can put it in a data center, you could put it in your remote office, your edge locations. We actually have a manufacturing customer that has a Stack HCI cluster sitting 10 meters from the production line. So it can truly exist anywhere. So when we say hybrid cloud, it is quite hard to visualize, right? When we say cloud, you go to Azure straight away. When you say on-prem, you think a bunch of servers. But what is the hybrid cloud? A lot of people have trouble visualizing it because it's forever been this concept that everyone's talking about, but no one actually knows what that looks like. So this slide is quite popular with all of our customers because you go away with a picture of what hybrid cloud really looks like. So at the bottom, we have this really rich hardware ecosystem of our OEM vendors like Dell. And we work with them to ensure that our solution works perfectly with their hardware. So all of Dell's x86 servers, the EX branded servers, are validated Stack HCI solutions. So as long as you purchase a solution that is validated, you can be absolutely sure that it's going to run absolutely fine. And in terms of support, you're completely covered. So we do have a joint support engagement with Dell. So whether you call their pro support line or you raise a ticket from your Azure portal or a Microsoft support ticket, we will work with you and we will triage with Dell and Microsoft in the background to ensure your problem is solved. But it has to be a Dell validated or an integrated solution. You can't just buy any x86 server and put Stack HCI on top of it. That's how we make sure that the hardware is able to keep up with the software. So that's the hardware, right? On top of this hardware sits Azure Stack HCI as an operating system. And this is like any other hyperconverged operating system, ESXi or the Nutanix AHV, if I'm not mistaken. Sorry, it's been a while. But, it's basically an operating system, and it is built on Hyper-V, just like Windows Server. The only difference is when you boot up a Stack HCI server, it doesn't boot into a graphical interface. It boots into kernel like any other HCI solution because it's meant to be a virtualization host. On top of Stack HCI, you'll have your virtual machine, which you completely own, by the way. So this is not an actual cloud service. When you license your virtual machines, you will use Windows Server Standard or Data Center, depending on the number of virtual machines you want. So that's your virtual machines all your own. And where the cloud piece comes in is when you use AKS or Azure Kubernetes services. AKS on Stack HCI is fully consistent with AKS in the cloud, which means you can develop in the cloud and deploy on-prem, or you can develop your applications on-prem, deploy in the cloud, vice versa. You can actually move your applications and containers unmodified between these two platforms. And that's just not it. With Arc-enabled AKS, you're able to bring Azure services on-prem, so Azure Cognitive Services, Data Services, SQL Managed Instance, Logic Apps, Azure Functions. All of these are examples of Azure services that actually run on-prem on Azure Stack HCI, but your data never actually leaves the cluster. So you use the Azure service, but your data stays on-prem and your compute happens on-prem. And that's the beauty of Stack HCI. Now, on the left here, I've got these hybrid services. I've got Azure Site Recovery, Backup, Update Management, File Sync Monitor, Azure Defender. That's security, and it's a bit outdated, but it's Azure Defender today. These are all a la carte enabled. So when you set up your cluster using Windows Admin Center, you'll just see these come up in Windows Admin Center on the left, and you just click on it and you enable it. And it's quite easy to set up. You can start backing up into the cloud. You can PR into the cloud. You can use Log Analytics and Azure Monitor. You can basically use all of these features and fire them up from your Azure Stack HCI cluster. On the left here, I've got Azure Arc, and I've got that because everything from this layer onwards can all be managed from your Azure portal. So if you're an Azure customer today, you'll know what an Azure resource group looks like. And Azure Stack HCI is exactly that. It is an Azure resource group, which means when you cluster up and put in your Azure subscription, it shows up in your Azure portal, and you can monitor, govern, do whatever you want to do with your Azure resource and keep it consistent with your other Azure resource. And that's what makes it all hybrid. That being said, do you have to use these hybrid services? The answer is no. As long as your basic licensing is covered, you don't actually have to use all of these from day one. But if you have a cloud roadmap, and if you are an existing cloud customer, an Azure customer, these are all features ready to go. They're ready to be fired up from the Stack HCI cluster. Now, where does this put Windows Server? Windows Server is still our baby. We will still support Hyper-V and SQD on Windows Server, but it is not being developed as a hypervisor. It's being developed as the best guest and best traditional server, which means you can still continue using Windows Server 2022, but it's being developed to run in your virtual machines or on your traditional server, but not as a hypervisor. The future of virtualization and hyperconvergence from a Microsoft perspective is on Azure Stack HCI. So all of our innovations, development, investments in terms of a hyperconverged platform is going into Azure Stack HCI. There is already a huge feature delta between these two platforms when it comes to the hyperconvergence of it, and that gap is only going to widen because these are two different products being developed for different reasons. Now, let's look at the four main pillars of Stack HCI. So I'm just doing a quick time check. Right, so let's look at the four main pillars. The first thing is that it's hybrid by design. What does this mean? When you purchase a Stack HCI cluster from Dell, it comes fully integrated with Stack HCI OS, which means you're not taking an empty box home and trying to install the operating system. It comes fully pre-installed with Azure Arc integrated. So you're not also trying to get a script to run to install Azure Arc. All of the magic that happens in Stack HCI through Azure Arc, that is pre-enabled. It comes fully integrated. So it is hybrid by design. It is meant to connect to your Azure subscription from the get-go, and it's meant to have you start consuming whatever Azure services you want from the platform directly. Enterprise scale and price performance. Now, it is a true HCI solution, which means you can add drives to scale out, or you can add nodes to scale up. So you can increase your capacity from the drive, or you can add more nodes to increase the density of your cluster. You can do both of these things. There's a third way, which is a not so well-known secret, and that is how you scale your CPU cores. I'll go into licensing very soon, but the way we license Azure Stack HCI is per core basis, and that's all we license. We license nothing else. If you have 10 cores on a node, we do $10 per core per month. So you only pay $100 for that entire node. If you have 3 nodes with 10 cores each, you do $300. It's no more, no less. That is all you need to pay. That is all you need to license to get a HCI solution up and running. But how does this scale? You can actually purchase cores up front. So let's say you have an Intel CPU you really like, and it's got about 32 cores per node, and you think your business will get to 32 cores per node in the next 2 years. You can actually purchase that. You can turn off 20 cores, and you can license only whatever's left. So you can say, if you buy about 30 cores, you turn off 20 cores, you license 10, and that's it. But when your business is approaching a busy season, you can go back into the BIOS, you can turn the cores back on, and you can start to license those. So we don't have a minimum core requirement. You could license 1 core for all we care, but a 1 core server doesn't exist. So you would have to purchase a few cores up front, you turn those off, and you only pay for the cores that are actively running today. This is a great way to ensure that your license is keeping up with your workloads. And it's a great way to be able to future-proof your purchase for the next how many years you have to. In terms of management and operations, there's a few ways a Stack HCI can be managed. If you're a Windows customer, if you've got Windows Server standalone data center, you'd be very familiar with how Windows Admin Center works. You can absolutely use Windows Admin Center to manage your Azure Stack HCI cluster. Or if you've got really itchy fingers, you can use PowerShell. Or if you're an Azure Cloud customer today, you can 100% manage a Stack HCI cluster from your Azure portal. So there's many ways you can manage a Stack HCI cluster. It really comes down to what your IT operations and your IT administration is comfortable with. You can use any of these methods. In terms of deployment options, with Dell, you get this fully integrated from factory. It comes pre-validated. They do the installation for you. They do the OS installation for you. And then you can either choose to have whatever option Dell offers post that. So you can choose to have it wrapped and stacked and the rest of the deployment done. Or I think Andre will go through that later, but there's a few options out there. The options vary with OEM. And I will say now the integrated solution is the best way to go because it reduces problems post-deployment in terms of validity, so in terms of validation, support, and so on. All right, so that said, when would you use a Stack HCI cluster, right? And like I said previously, it suits a wide variety of customer use cases and customer segments. One is to, of course, modernize and secure your data center infrastructure, which means when you go from a 3-tier solution to a hyperconverged solution, you're already taken that one step to modernize the infrastructure. With Azure Stack HCI, you're taking that a step further and you're moving to a hybrid cloud-ready platform. This doesn't make it a cloud solution. This is very much an on-prem solution. But if you're in that transition period where you need your workloads to stay on-prem, you're moving to Azure, or you're already in Azure, but you have workloads that absolutely need to process at the edge, data sovereignty, zero latency, you need that speed, perfect solution for that. In terms of edge solutions, it may sound absurd, but we actually do a single node Stack HCI solution, which means we start at a single node and we go as high as 16 nodes, which means you can put 1 or 2 servers at the edge in a cluster, or you can put a cluster of 16 servers in your data center and run all of your workloads through it. It really comes down to how you want to use the solution, but it suits a variety of needs. we have gone to market and we've said that we offer the best performance in terms of SQL Server workloads. And the reason behind this is quite simple. SQL Server is a Microsoft solution, so it's Azure Stack HCI. So we had our engineering team sit together and find a way to get SQL to run in kernel. Don't take my word for it. There is, I think, a storage review article which does a test with Stack HCI versus other HCI solutions, and they have declared that this does offer the best performance in terms of SQL workloads. If you're still in doubt, if you are not sure, you can absolutely do a POC and see how that works out for you. I'm pretty sure you're not going to be disappointed. Of course, the hardware needs to be fast enough as well. So you'll need to go with SSDs or NVMEs or high-speed drives, essentially. AKS is another great use case that we are constantly hearing about, because there are customers that have a few applications running in containers, but they also have most of their workloads running in virtual machines. With Stack HCI, you can have both. It's not one or the other. You can keep your existing virtual machines. You can test out your containers on Azure Kubernetes services. They can coexist, no problem. The intention with Stack HCI is to bring cloud services on-prem if there is demand for it. One of those asks for Azure Virtual Desktop. It is yet another example of a cloud service that runs on an on-prem solution while your data and compute happens at the edge or in your data center. There's several others that are in GA already. I think Azure Cognitive Services, Data Services, SQL managed instances. These are all already GA. These are all cloud services you can run off of Azure Stack HCI today. And this list is it's only going to grow because there's an extensive roadmap of cloud services that are going to be brought into Stack HCI. Right. Okay. How do our customers use hybrid? One is, of course, backup into the cloud. If you are into the cloud, if you're out of storage on your on-prem solution, you can extend your capacity into the cloud. And of course, the key and the beauty of Stack HCI is to be able to manage from Azure. So you manage your entire cluster from Azure. These are the two examples I spoke about. Right, so when you manage Stack HCI from Azure, because it's an Azure resource, you can actually extend your Azure policies, your role-based access controls, what have you, from other Azure resources to Stack HCI, which means you have a unified security posture across your cloud and on-prem solutions. This is another very interesting one. You can actually provision virtual machines from your Azure portal. So if you're familiar with how virtual machine provisioning works from Azure, you would deploy a virtual machine and you would select an Azure region. Instead of doing that, you can select your Azure Stack HCI cluster and you can deploy directly onto your Stack HCI cluster. I mean, think about that for a second. This is infrastructure unification. This is you deploying an on-prem virtual machine from a cloud portal. It's unheard of, but it's here today. It's where the future is, and it's where we're going. The intent is to be able to unify your infrastructure. It's no longer on-prem, hybrid, cloud. It's just one infrastructure, and that's kind of where we're going with this. Now, you can absolutely apply Azure policies, role-based access controls. You're fully in control in terms of security as well. And of course, you can enable your guest virtual machine workloads as well. And this is in preview and coming soon. The next slide is going to be another great example of why Stack HCI is so in demand with some of our large customers, especially in retail. Now, there is a feature on Stack HCI called multi-cluster monitoring. And that basically means you could have a few hundred clusters. There is no geographical limit to it. It can be anywhere in the world. And you can manage all of these clusters from a single portal. And this is what that looks like. So you can see here, this is an example of multi-cluster monitoring, the feature I'm talking about. You can have up to several hundred clusters here. And you'll see that you can manage these clusters at scale, which means you can look at the cluster health status from an overall cluster level, or you can go really granular and look at it from a node level. So you can see whether, from the screenshot alone, you can see if it's up or down, see, the node status, uptime, the CPU usage, how your memory is holding up, how your network's holding up, and so on. This is a great way to sort of stay across all of your clusters. And if something does go down, you can know from here straight away. All your IT person needs to do is log into Azure portal. They'll get a really good overview of what's happening in the infrastructure across the globe or across your very many clusters in Australia. Now, this was brought out as a very great retail customer solution, but I'll tell you now, there's so many customers that are not retail that find this particular feature quite useful, especially customers like our education customers with multiple clusters across many campuses, or manufacturing customers or mining customers with multiple mining sites. Like any customer that has multiple locations where they need their solutions to exist, great feature for them to take advantage of. Single node HCI. If you're familiar with hyperconvergence, single node makes 0 sense, but it makes so much sense. It was the single biggest ask from the market when we brought out a 2-node HCI cluster. This is for customers that require that drive level redundancy that a hyperconverged solution brings, but they don't need that 2-node, multi-node high availability that comes with a typical HCI solution. It is quite popular. We have quite a few opportunities on the go, many customers wanting to deploy this across multiple locations across Australia and New Zealand as well. A single node HCI solution does everything a full-blown HCI cluster can do. The only things it can't do are the ones that require node level resiliency. So if you can't actually fail over from 2 nodes, or you can't do a virtual machine failover with 0 downtime because there is no second node. But if it needs to sit in a corner somewhere quietly and do its thing and talk back into Azure, perfect solution. Let's quickly talk about licensing. Now, there's few ways to license a Stack HCI solution. What we've always had is the core-based model, which means we charge $10 per core per month. That's it. No underlying software. You don't have to pay for Azure Arc or the management portal or what have you. To get a fully functional HCI solution, you just license the cores. That's it. Your guest virtual machines need to be licensed separately. So you'll have to do Windows Server, Standard, or Data Center, depending on how many virtual machines you need. But that's essentially it. I will say now, though, every Azure service that you consume will be charged based on the billing model for that service. So it's pretty straightforward in terms of licensing. Now, this is a subscription-based solution, which means you're not actually paying upfront for an operating system like you typically do for Windows Server or other HCI solutions. This is a subscription-based model, so you pay month to month. It is an operational expense, but the benefit is it is always up to date. So you're not waiting the 4 years or 5 years or whatever the cadence is for the next latest and greatest release to come out. As soon as new features are released, it is automatically made available to you as a customer. Which means you can see here there's a minimum of 1 major release per year. And as soon as that release comes out, you can upgrade it. And I do think Dell has a cluster aware update feature, so you can actually do the upgrade with minimal downtime. So yeah, subscription-based model, very good to have because you're not worried about how are we maintaining the security on this? How are we going to manage any lapses in terms of the software being out of date? It's all going to be ready to go, and you will basically enable it. You're not going to push the update to you without your permission. You will have to go in and give it permission, but it is there, and it is going to be one every year, so you're always up to date. Right, so how would you license it? The base license is $10 per core per month. We spoke about that. You would procure your hardware from Dell, and then you would license your virtual machines on top of it. So you would do Windows Server if you need 2 virtual machines, if you would do Windows Server Data Center if you need multiple virtual machines. There is a third way, and if you're an Azure customer, you'll like this. There is a way to license Windows Server from the cloud. There is a Windows Server Azure version, and you can absolutely use that to license your virtual machines as well. From a minimum buy-in perspective, we only need 1 core. It's not a realistic solution, but it's just to say that there are no limitations from Microsoft itself. You can license 1 core or 100 cores or how many ever you would like. The first 60 days of this license are free of cost. This is obviously a subscription, and you get Azure Premier support. There's another very interesting feature that I think all of our customers need to be aware of, and they need to take advantage. There is something called extended security updates. So we've got a few servers out there that are running Windows Server 2008, SQL Server 2008, basically, models that are end of support. And what these customers do, and what you and your customers might be doing, is you might be paying extended security updates to maintain security updates on these older versions. This really does add up. The cost to maintain ESUs is quite high. And I've seen these numbers in the background. Now, typically, the first year, you would pay 75% of full license costs to maintain ESUs on older Windows versions. The second year, you would be paying 100%. The third year, you would pay 125% just to maintain legacy Windows versions. And yeah, I have seen these numbers in the background. The amount of funds our customers are putting into this can actually bring them brand new infrastructure and brand new technology solutions. But with Azure Stack HCI, ESUs are included free of cost, which means that 75%, 100, 125%, all included in the price. The $10 per core per month is all included in the price. So when you get Azure Stack HCI, you can actually run legacy Windows and SQL versions. And what's more, you get an additional year free that is not even available to our customers outside of Azure Stack HCI to purchase. So even if they want to pay money for it, they can't get it. So you get first 3 years free, and then you get an additional year to allow for that extra time to transition out of your existing applications onto whatever the newer Windows version is. So that's ESUs for you. Please go have a look. If you have legacy Windows and SQL versions, you should absolutely be considering refreshing, because chances are that it's running on pretty old hardware. It's probably out of security and compliance, and you might want to get onto that pretty quickly. Okay, so I'll stop here before I segue. We've spoken about a certain virtual license through the Azure portal. This is an Azure subscription, ESUs, guest licenses. Over Ignite, the past few weeks, a couple of weeks ago, we've actually announced a second way to license your Azure Stack HCI, and that's what I'm trying. That's where I'm going to go to next. Please stay with me. Per core per month, $10 per core per month, and then guest virtual machines. Now, during Ignite, it was announced that if you have Windows Server 2016 or upwards, and if you're maintaining software assurance on that Windows version, that $10 per core per month is automatically included in the price. What you also get is Azure Kubernetes service, which would be a service you would pay for if you did the $10 per core, the subscription model. But if you do Windows Server 2016 with software assurance, you get the cores, Azure Kubernetes services, and all of your guest virtual machines can be licensed for free as well. I use the word free, but it's actually not free. It's a benefit. So when you do Windows Server 2016 software assurance, you're not double licensing the cores and your guest virtual machines. You do the one single license, and you get your Azure Stack HCI solution. You get your Azure Kubernetes services, then you get your unlimited virtual machines for your guest workloads. So this was very recently announced. If you do have software assurance, please go out and explore this option. It's called the Azure Hybrid Benefit. There's a lot of public-facing documents on how this works. You basically just go into your Stack HCI cluster and enable Azure Hybrid Benefits. It really is that simple as that. And then if you are looking to make a new purchase, and if you're not really convinced or tempted with the subscription-based model, you can still purchase Windows Server from your partner, whether it's alltasksIT or Dell or what have you. You get about 90 days to go out and purchase software assurance. You absolutely need to attach software assurance to your license within 90 days, or the offer will lapse. So once you do that, unlocks all of these benefits to you. It is a great way to make sure that your Hyperconverged solution is cost effective and you're not double licensing anything. But I've also seen customers just do the $10 per core per month license, and they do a couple of Windows Server standard licenses to license forward to machines. Perfectly happy, great solution at a very good price. All right. So this is the next slide is basically explaining that everything I just spoke about. And you'll see here that here we go. With Azure Stack HCI AHP, you get AKS, the Windows guest server virtual machine workloads, as well as the Azure Stack HCI host fee, all included in price. If this is still a bit confusing, do a bit of research on it. There's documents everywhere, they're all public facing. The more you learn about this, the better, because with information comes clarity, right? And the clearer you are, the better decisions you can make for your infrastructure. All right. The biggest challenge with a cloud solution or a hybrid cloud solution for our customers is trying to estimate cost. What if it gets out of hand? What if you're spinning up services and you don't know what it's going to cost you for the next year, the next 2 years? You no longer have to worry about that. There is something called the Azure Cloud, the Hybrid Cloud Size Estimator. This is another link that is public facing. So if you're contemplating a Stack HCI or a hybrid solution, you could actually go in here and you can put in the workloads that you're willing to fire up through Stack HCI, and it gives you a good estimate of what this looks like. So if you're doing the traditional licensing just based off of the screenshot, you'll see that monthly is a certain cost, and then it gives you the annual cost. And then you would add things like Azure Policy, Azure Monitor, Azure Defender for Cloud, and so on, and gives you a good estimate of what it's going to cost you per month and per annum. So this is just an example where I bumped up all of the services and I added everything to maximize the cost to show you what it looks like. If you're doing the Windows Server 2016 with the software assurance, these first 2 lines will dial down to 0, which means the last 3 are the only ones you'll pay for. So these would be 0, which means between around 50K or 45K, nearly 50K of savings just on that Windows Server data center with software assurance licensing. It's a good way for you to estimate what a solution like this is going to cost you, whether or not you should be bumping up hybrid services or Azure services off of this platform. You should wait for a while. And if you do attach your Azure services to your Stack HCI solution, it's going to give you a good overview of what this will look like. Right. Here is a quick roadmap. This is actually one slide out of many, many slides, just to show you that this product is being actively developed and invested into. There's a lot of features that are GA today. There's more features that are going to be coming out early next year or the next few years. And we want to make this as secure and as robust as possible for you. So at the moment, AVD on Stack HCI will be GA next year. You will see that we are improving our GPU capabilities as well. So if you've got video analytics, CCTV workloads, great solution for that as well. And if anyone's interested, please let me know. I will share the full roadmap on what Stack HCI development looks like over the next year as well. Right. There's actually quite a few ways to procure your Stack HCI solution. There is you can find solution on azure.com/HCI, and you will see that when you select a validated or an integrated node, it lets you calculate how much compute and memory you need. And then you will need to go back to Dell to see what it looks like in terms of hardware costs for you. And that brings me to the end of my presentation. I did good time. I've got 3 minutes if there's questions.
Fantastic. Thank you, Kirti. That was a great presentation on Azure Stack HCI. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
For me, the standout was great. I think the fact that you've integrated, you've got an integrated solution that provides, the seamless Azure experience between the on-prem and the cloud. That's already got me thinking a little bit about, obviously the true potential behind it. And in my mind, I'm already starting to think about, qualifying some of the existing workloads that we have in our Azure tenancy. And how we could benefit from going to that. I'm also excited about just what you mentioned there about the Azure hybrid benefits too. So thank you for sharing that.
Absolute pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Did we have any poll questions for this one, or are we moving forward? Anybody? John, was there a poll question? Did we had to release, or are we're going to move on to Andre? And
what did we have? Let me think.
Just to give the viewers a moment to have a sip of water and possibly answer a question.
No worries. I'll push the first one out.
There we go. Guys on the call, if you can just have a quick look at your screen, you should see a poll question that's come up there about Dell solutions. So And that's good. It's a good segue into handing over to Andre, who's going to tell us a little bit more about about the collaborative approach between Microsoft and obviously the role that Dell plays in making all of this possible. So feel free to jump in and answer the question if you can. I'm gonna pretend that I don't know anything, and I'm just gonna say I've never used anybody, and I don't know who Microsoft or Dell is. I wouldn't have any friends after that. And the second one here, obviously, do you or your customers have any concerns around infrastructure and data security when you consider your on-prem and cloud strategy? Again, I'm going to play devil's advocate and say, what is data security? Right? Because I'm going to pretend I don't know. Probably skew the results a little bit too, guys, but so be it.
I'm happy to actually talk to that in the minute I've got left. So just hybrid cloud and Stack HCI in general, there's multiple layers of security around both the hardware and the data, as well as when you go into the cloud. It's a very good something to think about, because this used to be a high secure facility offering many years ago, but now it's just industry norms. This is what we're sending out to our customers today. So from having a secure supply chain where it's secure in transit to you, to having BitLocker encryption for your data at rest, to having SMB encryption when your data is in transit, to all of the cloud securities with Microsoft Defender when your workloads hit the cloud in terms of Azure policy, role-based access control. This is a solution that's secure in every layer. So if you're thinking, what's going to happen to my data? Is it going to be secure when it's on the cluster? Is it going to be secure when it's going to the cloud or in the cloud? Worry no more, because there's many, many layers of security to ensure your infrastructure is safe.
Right, that's fantastic. Thank you for answering that, and hopefully the viewers all actually got something out of that one. Now, time-wise, we're at 15 minutes into 11 o'clock. I will now hand over to Andre. Andre, please tell us a little bit about, obviously the Dell technologies, and how you can help with Microsoft to make all of this possible.
All right, thank you, Matt. Let me bring up my slides for a second. Okay, can you guys see my slide now?
Absolutely, yes, thank you.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, thank you, everyone. Good morning. My name is Andre Ahmad. I'm a pre-sales specialist from Dell Technologies, covering converged and hyperconverged solutions in APJ, especially focusing on Azure Stack solutions. So Kerti has done really great job on explaining Azure Stack HCI in detail. So in this session, however, I'm going to take you through on how Dell and Microsoft as our technology partner can bring value in your digital transformation journey, especially on how to leverage a hybrid and multi-cloud approach to accelerate innovation in your organization. Okay. So when we look at the market share, right, we have over 30% market share in HCI, which makes us #1 worldwide. And if we zoom in on HCI for Microsoft solution segment, we have about 75 market share. So this number proves that we are very committed with Microsoft to build a true hybrid cloud storage, which are accepted worldwide. Our innovation together with Microsoft from edge to core and cloud is very strong, with our numerous engineers co-located at Microsoft HQ, which allows us to spend thousands of engineering person hours validating joint solutions to provide you with the confidence and peace of mind. Our go-to-market with Microsoft also strong, where we have a dedicated Microsoft organization in the region, who their success is how technology partners like Dell successfully bring value of our hybrid and multi-cloud story together. So if we talk about Microsoft Azure, right? Microsoft Azure is the largest hyperscaler in terms of number of presence. They have about more than 70 Azure regions, which means there are more Azure regions than both AWS and Google Cloud combined. They have 100 of service providers who deploy Azure Stack Hub, and more than thousands of enterprise adopting Azure model to serve the speed and innovation needs of their business. Now, Dell Technologies has been partnership with Microsoft Azure for quite a while to provide the most flexibility and seamless integration for our customer to adopt a hybrid and multi-cloud story of what Microsoft has. We launch a breadth of solutions from fully integrated HCI solutions, such as what we are focusing right now, Dell Integrated System for Azure Stack HCI, right? We also have a certified infrastructure for Azure Arc. Many of our solutions are certified and integrated to Microsoft Azure Arc to enable seamless hybrid cloud approach, and to data protection solution, right? Where you can find in Azure Marketplace, we have our data protection to protect workloads running on Azure. So we are keep innovating and implementing solutions together with Microsoft to help customers leverage the best of Microsoft Azure. Right, I think John has spin up this poll, so let's continue. Now let's look deeper into what makes Azure Stack HCI is the ideal solution for optimizing Azure Hybrid Cloud. So Microsoft Azure Stack HCI is optimized for hybrid and multi-cloud environments. Microsoft has taken a unique approach around cloud and on-premise deployments than the other hyperscaler probably, right? Microsoft understood that many IT organizations simply could not put all their operation into cloud for a variety of reasons. That's why they also focus for the on-premise solutions. So Dell Azure Stack HCI is engineered for Azure's on-premises deployment. And Dell has taken it further by building additional software automation to centralize and streamline IT infrastructure operations. So in summarize, why you use Dell Azure Stack HCI. So Dell Azure Stack HCI is fully engineered, right? And tested system, right? So we have gone 1,000 of hours on validating and certifying the AX node. It's not just like you build your do-it-yourself servers where you have a complexity and risk when you operating, especially for how do you lifecycle manage the solution, right? We have the extensive software-driven automation, which is integrated into the Windows Admin Center as a local edge management, and also in Azure Portal, right? So we created the definition of HCI policy, which can make sure your Azure Stack HCI cluster perform as its best and as secure as possible. So this Dell Open Managed integration, right, is possible with the extension plugin available in Windows Admin Center. So it enables you to manage all your infrastructure locally, and then the Azure Arc Portal, you can manage all the cluster at scale, right? And we have also the integration on that part. There's a IT trend also that Azure Stack HCI addresses, and also our focus also on how we invest the next roadmap is about the increasing number of deployments at edge, right? Over 50% of IT system will be outside the data center by 2024. So Dell Azure Stack HCI gives you choices of hardware configuration. Kerti mentioned about they just released a single node. So we have option if you consider about the availability, we have two node for branch or edge use case. Or if you have a distributed application where it is not important the infrastructure availability, your application is taking care of the availability. What you are most important is the customer experience. So you can use the single node cluster, and all are being managed by Azure Arc, right? So you can see all your cluster across geographical location. Now let's take a look at how the Azure Stack HCI delivers value to our customers. So on this slide, we summarize the value of Dell Technologies, Microsoft, and Microsoft product together deliver to our customers. So first, deliver a seamless Azure experience. So it's really about how we deliver a unique software-driven Azure integrations to simplify operation across multiple locations. Secondly, simplify Azure on-premise. Dell Azure Stack HCI integrated system with software-driven automation ensures simpler IT operation. And then third, accelerate innovation. So we have flexible configuration with integrated Azure services to enable DevOps agility and application outcomes. So let's take a look at each one of the benefits. So Let's start with how we can deliver a seamless Azure experience. So the tight integration between Microsoft Azure Cloud and Azure Stack HCI, which is hybrid by design, makes managing IT operation across multi-location very seamless. So the consistent Azure Arc services across all locations provide IT with streamlined and simpler management of all systems at all locations. Optimized workload placement means IT can choose the best location to place workloads, whether it is cloud, for example, for your front-end application, right? Or it is on your on-premise data center or on edge, right? So all the applications usually have specific requirements, right? Like performance, latency, or there's also data privacy or data sovereignty issues, right? That we can solve by deploying a hybrid application model. So market survey shows that customers consistently rank managing hybrid and multi-cloud as top 5 issue for IT organizations. So how do you consistently manage those different locations? So that's the most important thing for IT, right? So Azure Arc management services such as monitoring, security management, and governance, and also with platform services such as Azure Kubernetes services or AKS, or are delivered as on-demand services, right? So you can add it gradually, right, depending on your requirements. And all those services are continuously updated to ensure consistent user experience. So reducing this IT administrative overhead can make you very focused on your strategic initiative or your business innovations. Using Azure Arc with Dell Azure Stack HCI nodes will reduce IT complexity of managing different services and process across this dispersed location. You can also choose where to deploy Dell Azure Stack HCI nodes. You can deploy your legacy apps, your traditional apps on top of Hyper-V, or your cloud native app on your AKS on top of Azure Stack HCI based on your requirement to meet the specific SLA and also to comply with the regulatory compliance requirements. Azure Arc services can maintain security, consistent security and compliance policy across all your location. Then Azure Stack HCI is a very good choice for both data center modernization as well as edge deployments that need increased security and more compute or storage than typical edge gateways offer. All right, we have discussed how Azure Stack HCI delivers seamless Azure experience across all locations. Now let's take a look at how Azure Stack HCI simplifies Azure on-premise. Right. So we deliver the Azure Stack solution as a complete engineered system. So it's a really purpose-built for Azure ecosystem, right? So this is our strategy, our approach. Integrated system is if you look at the HCI catalog from Microsoft, they'll only propose the integrated system because we really focus on how to make our customer experience in building the on-premise or the hybrid cloud infrastructure as seamless as possible, right? You don't want to have your application running on Azure is really perfect, but when you deploy it on premise, you have those complexity, right? So we want to bring this at the same as experience as when you run your application on Azure. So we design and optimize the performance and resiliency all through the component that we propose. So lifecycle management is our flagship, right? So we have experience to deliver converged and hyperconverged infrastructure from other solution. Now we are putting our expertise on Azure, how to make Azure Stack HCI as seamless as possible. So being purpose built means customer get best experience. In fact, in Microsoft Azure Stack HCI catalog, right, there are only 4 vendors that offer integrated system. So Microsoft also highly recommend to pursue with the integrated system and to have a very seamless experience. With our unique differentiation is with our open managed integration, right, and automation. You can have those seamless experience, and also we have also defined a policy, HCI policy, which can integrate it into Azure policy to make your Azure Stack HCI cluster as compliant as possible with best practice and also with the security best practice. Right. So let's talk about the integration with the Windows Admin Center. So we have this open managed integration with Windows Admin Center, and also the integration with the Azure Arc. So we provide a full stack end-to-end lifecycle management by seamlessly orchestrating the update of OS, BIOS, firmware, and drivers, right? All from single update workflow, right? Integrate with the cluster-aware updates feature that Kathy has talked about. And this will significantly reduce time to complete those complex tasks. So our intelligent lifecycle management is cluster-aware, ensuring that you receive only the updates you need. So it's a single reboot, and then it's a non-disruptive. Your roles, your VMs can be dynamically drained into one of the nodes, into other nodes, right? So while those nodes is being updated and rebooted, so everything is run automatically without IT have to be attention, right? So our internal testing, we show that the automation and lifecycle management has significantly reduced IT admin activities time and steps. So it reduces manual steps by 82%. It reduces by 40% the total time required and resulting maintenance window. And it's minimized risk caused by IT operator mistake or installation option guesswork. So Dell Open Managed integration with Windows Admin Center and Azure Arc has dramatically reduced time spent doing maintenance operations and free up time for IT to work on strategic projects that drive business innovation. Right. So one of the pillars of the Azure Stack HCI is you can bring your skills, right? Your familiar skill, your familiar tools, such as Windows Admin Center, right? Windows Admin Center is a roadmap by Microsoft to be a single management which combine many management snap-ins console, which previously quite a lot into one single tools, right? So, for example, you have your failover cluster manager previously, you have your Hyperview manager, all now can be combined into single Windows Admin Center, where you can think of if you're coming from VMware, for example, vSphere, you have your vCenter. So Windows Admin Center is a perfect equivalent of those vCenter. You can also run as an infrastructure as a code using your PowerShell, for example, and manage all the infrastructure using PowerShell. So depending on your skills on managing the infrastructure, so it's eliminating the learning curve and accelerate your implementation and operation of hybrid cloud. Now, Azure Arc provides IT with centralized control for all those dispersed locations. And with our integrated software-driven automation, we can ensure consistent operation across all IT infrastructure, such as comprehensive management, monitoring, and security compliance. With the growing trend of more IT infrastructure at edge, having centralized management and consistency across all locations is important features for the technical decision maker. Okay, now let's take a look at a short demo on how we can manage our on-premise cluster through Azure Arc and Windows Admin Center. So this is just to get you familiarity on the interface. So I'm gonna spin my lab. Right, so I have, wait a second. So I have a lab sitting on my partner's data center. So we have a few clusters, and all the cluster has been registered into Azure. So for example, we have this cluster, Nakula cluster. We have 3 nodes, right? So you can see the same. You can see the same cluster, a consistent view of those cluster on premise on Azure public. So this is the Azure Arc blades, right? You can see all your Azure Stack HCI cluster over here. Yeah, so this is my 3 clusters, all located on my lab, right? So I have registered this cluster, and you can also view if you have deploy this on a different geographic location. You can also have a very cool map view of your clusters, depending on where they are located. Currently, I put everything on East US region, right? If you have your local region, for example, Australia, you can probably see your cluster here, right? So this is the, if you take a look at the detail on each of the cluster, you can see how many nodes of this Azure Stack HCI cluster, right? And then you can bring many of the Azure services such as monitoring, right? You can, because this one is actually on premise. So Azure Stack HCI is actually on premise resources, but when you integrate it into Arc, when you register the cluster in Azure, then it become an Azure resources. So it's you can apply Azure construct on these objects, such as the access control tags, right? And other custom scripts, for example, extensions, right? So it's become the Azure resources, right? Where you can integrate with other Azure services. So this is the small demo. I will later on give some demo on our extension. So in Windows Admin Center, we have the extension. So extension is the plugin or SDK. How do you say it? It's for open for your OEM vendors to develop their management or integration to Windows Admin Centers. So we quite have a unique differentiation where we have take the extension to another level. So it's not just how you can lifecycle manage. There's so many features we provide in the extension. So I will later on demo on this. Okay, let's get back to the slide. Right, the last one is how we can bring value to accelerate innovation, right? So IT not only has to keep operation running, but today they need to deliver cutting-edge apps that are critical to business, right? So Azure Arc services simplify workload deployments, and our Dell validated solution help our customer accelerate application time to value. An example of this is we have a Dell SQL Server validated solution. So we have a few white papers you can check on our Info Hub sites. I will share that later in the chat. So we have building a hybrid database as a service platform with Azure Stack HCI. So you can actually deploy your SQL. There's many ways to do SQL database. You can deploy it on a VM, right? And then you integrate to Arc to be able to see it on the Azure. You can inventory your SQL database, and also you can get the compliance from your SQL database. You can also bring platform as a service, SQL as a platform as a service For example, the SQL managed instance. So this is already GA. So you can actually bring those services into on-premise. So you don't have to worry about managing anymore, updating it, putting a security best practice on it. You just use it, your SQL database. And we also have another reference, right, architecture for Azure Virtual Desktop solution, right, embracing hybrid work with Azure Stack Virtual Desktop powered by Dell Integrated System for Azure Stack HCI. So those reference solution we will continue to deliver to customers to get the best practice on each of the applications, right? So we continue to develop those white paper. We also provide multiple GPU options that our customer can utilize to optimize their mostly at the first phase, we're focusing on the artificial intelligence and machine learning and analytics use cases. So those GPUs usually are for AI, ML, right? And later on, we probably with Microsoft, we also will provide those GPU for other use cases such as VDI, for example. Right, and also edge, right? In many cases, IT needs to deploy workloads at edge. So Dell has the edge optimized configuration as part of our broad choice of node configuration. So we have 2 edge node, right, with switchless architecture where you really don't have to provide expensive top of the rack switches. You can just connect back to back between the nodes, right? And you can run 2 nodes, 3 nodes, up to 4 nodes, all with the back-to-back connection without switches, right? So you can just use your broadband switches for uplink, but for storage traffic, management traffic, you can use those end-to-end connections. So this is one of the validated workload solution. So Dell validated workload solution is another part what Dell does to assure our customer have a better and more predictable Azure Stack HCI experience. So I'm not going through on the hardware option, but just to highlight that we go with the integrated system approach. So integrated system versus validated nodes. So many of our competitors sell validated nodes, right? Which is only a review of a product's specification. Integrated system means Dell engineer has tested and validated each configuration for each broad use cases with Azure Stack HCI OS to ensure a more predictable customer experience from day one. Right. And then for the services, right, we also make our deployment of Azure Stack HCI is simple, flexible, and worry-free, right? From installation and configuration to comprehensive single source of support. Like previously, Kathy mentioned that you can just have a single call to us, and then we have a collaboration with Microsoft. So if the problem is from the software side, from the Azure Stack HCI OS side, we are collaborating with Microsoft to get those problems solved, right? We have many certified deployment engineers to ensure accuracy and speed, reduce risk, downtime, right? We have award-winning services, right? At Microsoft event, we always get award with our consulting services, with our deployment services. So we have one-stop expertise, which covering the operating system, hypervisor, storage space direct, right? We have over 35,000 service professionals serving customers in 170 countries. We also continue to make investment on emerging applications, so we can help you to deploy your transformation, right? So this is Dell customer can have a single source for all their Azure and Azure Stack HCI product, procurement, installation, services, and global support. So this is also one of our strong advantages over most competition. And then if you want to have an OpEx-based approach, right, we can offer Apex, Dell Apex is a cloud consumption services as a services. So we can give you Dell Azure Stack HCI technology as a services using our Apex Flex on demand. So it delivers elastic capacity and pay-per-use experience. So you can have on-premises infrastructure, but all are OpEx-based. And also further, we have the Apex data center utility, right? It's even more flexible. We have paired with the managed services. So it's let you align, let you focus on your outcomes rather than being in the business of managing your data center. So both of this program offer our customer balance between cost and flexibility they need for their business success, right? And then more and more standardized cloud and as a service will roll out continually under the umbrella of our Dell Apex. So if you take a look at the customer use case, we have one great use case in NZ, right? This is one of the large mining company. So they have a problem on how they keep up with the capacity demand. So the capacity demand, for example, for a backup and file is ever growing, right? And then their procurement cannot keep it up. So they have to make a hybrid solution, right? So hybrid cloud as much as it makes sense, right? They also need to modernize. They still require this on-premise application, and then they want to make sure those on-premise is at highest availability as possible. So we have a stretch cluster features from Azure Stack HCI. Which can give you the active data center capability, right? So this is one unique features which you can only find on Azure Stack HCI OS, not on your Windows-based HCI, right? So they implement these solutions, and also they now they have a minimal downtime, right, for maintenance duties with our integration with Windows Admin Center and Azure Arc. And then they have availability and reliability that they are looking for with stretch cluster capabilities between two sites, right? And then they can burst easily to the cloud, right? So their requirement on how they keep up with the backups and file share is they just integrate it with Azure File Syncs, right? So you can use your Azure file server on the on-premise and also in the cloud, right? And also using the Azure backup, right? And they also enjoy the management at scale with the Azure Arc. And then interestingly, also we have a government use case. So usually government is quite reluctant to go all the way to the cloud. Everything must be on premises. But we can, with the Azure Arc, we can explain that the Azure Arc is ensuring that your compliance and security is always meet, right? We don't send your data across to the public Azure. It's only send the telemetry and logs for managing your infrastructure, and it's performed in a secure way, and you can really have a more secure option like creating a private endpoint, right? Using the private network or VPNs, right? So there's many ways to secure, but that just for the logs and telemetry. Your data is really stays on premise. So this is one of the government use case. So they modernize their infrastructure from 3-tier to hyperconverged, right, to standardize how they operate their IT. So they deploy all the Microsoft-based application on top of those HCI, and now they considering to deploy FED and also Kubernetes, right? So we have the most database performance depending on which AX nodes that you choose. We have all NVMe cluster, and also leveraging the RDMA networking also provides all the IOPS and throughput required for database, right? And then adopting a secure hybrid cloud. So a hybrid cloud, they also look at what kind of Azure services that they can bring on premise, but stay in compliance with the data sovereignty. Right, so we come to the last part. So I will show you on the our unique differentiation, right? So previously we saw how we can manage through the Windows Admin Center and Azure Arc. So furthermore, we can lifecycle management from deployment, right? How do you deploy? We are integrating the deployment with our extension. So when you deploy, it makes sure that the hardware is in compliance, and all the BIOS firmware and driver is synchronized with the version of the Azure Stack HCI. So when it's time to update, right? Wait, let me disable the call out. So when it's time to update, right? This we have also the integration here. So when you check your updates, right, and then we give you these features. So this is only available with our integration, right? Usually, if this is a validated node, they don't have this kind of integration. They just manually have to update their firmware and driver manually, and then after that they update the operating system. Here we have a very seamless operation. So before you update the operating system, you must make sure that your node is in compliance, right? We give you the updates in one catalog, so you don't have to find which component or which drivers, which BIOS is supported on which version. Everything is in one single catalog and automated connected to our Dell support, right? So this case, this cluster is in compliance, and then you can just connect online to our catalog, or if you have a very limited internet connectivity, so you can use offline where you can download the catalog into your file share environment, right? But the Azure, remember that the Azure Stack HCI solution is not fully disconnected, so it needs to be connected to Azure at least in a 30 days period, right? But that is at minimum, right, for the billing or monitoring purposes only. So then after we connected to the Dell catalog, we can just check the compliance and make sure that all our component is compliant. If not, then we need to update first which component that is not compliant, right? Aligning to the OS that we want to update, right? So this is downloading, and then install. So install here is integrated with the feature called cluster aware updates, right? So it's basically making sure that your VM stays non-disruptive, right? It's drain the VM from one node to another nodes, and then reboot the nodes, and then bring back the VM after it's done, right? So this is showing you that the updates is successful. So it's full stack lifecycle management all the way from the OS and also the hardware and BIOS.
Sorry, Andre,
so
just quickly,
yeah.
I need to give you the 2-minute warning. I've got the producers of the show punching me in the back with a stick, so I've got to give you the 2-minute warning, my friend.
Yes. Okay. So we actually have at the end of my presentation. So I just want to show you that we take this integration to another level. So not just the full stack lifecycle management. We also have, for example, dynamic CPU core management. So Kerti has explained that the Azure Stack HCI OS is based on per core licensing, per core per month, right? This feature dynamic CPU core management is for use cases where you have on your first deployment, your first phase, you have so many cores, but you only use like 50% of the cores, for example. So you can disable some cores and expose only cores that you need. And then because it's integrated with the cluster aware update management, so it's really seamless. It's done through this extension. You don't have to go to your server and BIOS and then make the core disable from that GUI, but all the way seamless using this extension. Right. So we have so many resources and links where you can take further learning. We have our product page, Info Hub, right, and also the Customer Solution Center. You can contact your local Dell account, and then if you want to have want to book a demo, for example, we can book a demo in our Customer Solution Center. We also have Microsoft MTC, right? We are joint collaboration with Microsoft. So we deliver our AX nodes to Microsoft MTC as well. So you can either set up a demo in our CSC or on Microsoft MTC. Right. That's my end of presentation. I'll give it back to Matt.
Thank you very much, Andre. Again, sorry for the wind up. I know we're short on time, and obviously our audience has probably got things that they need to get off to as well. But again, thank you. Great presentation, very in depth, which was fantastic, and thank you for the demonstration. And again, showing us all on this call how it all comes together from a hardware and the technology layer. So thank you. And again, you have clearly proven to everybody here, I think, today that there is now a new reality that's out there, and it's available to us today, right? When we talk about hyperconverged infrastructure, and it's funny how that just seemed like an idea not that long ago, but it is now a reality. So, thank you, fantastic. And again, there you have it, folks. I've just got one slide I'd like to bring up just towards the end. I'm hoping everybody can see that slide. Everyone can see that slide? Let me know. Yep, great. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Look, obviously, I'd like to personally thank Kirti and Andre for their time today, and again, presenting today, you know, as our subject matter experts. Really appreciate the time from you guys. I hope our audience's knowledge regarding Azure Stack HCI has certainly, or has either increased or has now started to, you know, given you a bit of a kickstart to start that next conversation about HCI and what it all means, right, when we talk about Azure Stack and HCI. If you'd like to know more, our marketing team will be sending out an email shortly after this session, and it will allow you to book some time with us and obviously have those further discussions. And we're all obviously going to be available if you need to chat further. On behalf of everybody here today, thank you for bringing this all together. I know a lot of work's gone into it. You know, it's great to have the right people in the right place at the right time. A big, massive thank you to our audience today for obviously coming along and joining us and going through this session with us. And I wish everybody today, you know, a great rest of the day and obviously a great weekend ahead. So thank you guys for being here today. Really appreciate it. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you all.
Thank you, everyone.